I, Travis Argy, call the audio conference state plumbing board meeting of April 16th, 2020 at 9:32 a.m. Debbie, would you please do a roll call?
Yes, sir. Chairman Travis Argio.
Here.
Vice Chair Matt Roselle.
Here.
Thank you. Craig Anderson.
Here.
Corey Fraser is excused. Melissa Gett.
Here.
Molly Keller.
Here.
Joseph LeBold.
Here.
And Mr. Chair, if I may introduce staff that is connected by a teleconference with our audio board meeting this morning.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we have the Chief Plumbing Inspector, Andy Skinner. And we have the Policy Analyst in Policy and Technical Services, Andy Bolton. Another Policy Analyst in Policy and Technical Services, Tyler Glaze. We have Nick Howard for our Contested Case Representative in Enforcement Services. Alana Cox, who is the Manager of Policy and Technical Services. We have Todd Smith, who is our Senior Stakeholder and Public Affairs Analyst in Administration. We have Roseanne Nelson, Assistant Manager of Operations Section and Field Services, and she's also the Manager of Licensing. And we have Sarah Lam-Linville, who is a Contested Case Representative for Enforcement Services. Thank you for being connected.
Okay. So the next thing on the agenda is there any, ask the members if there's any changes to the amended agenda? If not, is there any changes? No.
No.
No. No. Okay. All right, I, Chair Argy, rule the amended agenda and order of business approved. Let's see. Draft meeting minutes of February 27th, 2020 will be reviewed for approval at the June 18th regularly scheduled meeting. Okay. Next part is the next meeting will be June 18th, 2020. All right, so there is no public comment, right?
No, sir.
Okay. We'll move on to the next one, program update with Mr. Andy Skinner.
Thank you, Chair Argue. Through the chair, my name is Andy Skinner. I am the Plumbing Program Chief for the State of Oregon Building Codes Division. First, I would like to say to everybody, I hope everybody's staying safe and healthy out there with our current pandemic that we have going on. And again, thank you for logging in today. I know this is an unusual way to do the meeting, but I think it's important that we do gather today, and I want to thank everybody for that. I too also want to introduce Andy Bolton. Andy Bolton is one of our new policy analysts, and he will be assigned to the plumbing board moving forward. Andy, if you want to talk a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Thanks, Andy. Hello, everyone. I look forward to meeting you all in person at some point. I come to BCD from the Justice Department where I was a legislative analyst, and prior to that, I worked on disaster recovery programs in New York and Iowa. Yeah. Good to hear you all.
Thanks for coming aboard.
Thank you, Andy. I do have a couple of updated items today. Well, I'd like to talk about kind of where we're at in the code adoption process. You know, everybody that played a role in the code adoption process this cycle done a fabulous job. It moved through the process very smoothly. We got to the point of having the final draft about ready to go off to the printer, and then you know, we hit our current situation that we're in right now with this COVID-19. With that said, there's some new challenges that we're facing in the code adoption process. And with those challenges, we're not going to be able to roll out our October 1st, 2020 date that we had planned. And that will get pushed out. Once the dust settles, then we'll gather back up and figure what date is going to work. Some of the challenges that we're having out there, of course, with the social distancing and some of the major gatherings, we don't have the opportunity, one of the challenges, we don't have the opportunity to get things to the printer and get them back in a timely manner. So in the interim, I've been consulting with the industry and with the committee chair for the code committee. And what I would like to do with the board's approval is move out some of the more substantive changes in the interim. And what I would like to do once I get that list is bring that back to the board for the board's input and also a fiscal impact at the next meeting. Just for an example, some of the changes, because we talked about some of those highlighted changes when the code committee brought their recommendations to the board. But I think there's some good things out there that if we move forward in the interim, it might be good for our industry. And one of them is 5 water closets on a 3-inch sewer, for an example. The retrofit on a tub to shower allowing an 1.5 inch trap and trap arms. So those are just a couple, but I'll bring a complete list to the next board meeting. Any questions on the code adoption?
This is Travis, the chair. I don't have any questions on this. I think it's a smart way of doing things.
Okay.
Craig Anderson, through the chair, full agreement.
Thank you.
Melissa Get through the chair. I have a question. Do you feel like with this wanting to roll out just some of these more substantive changes that it could mean that we might not roll out a code change because depending on how long this might go on, or I'm just curious what your reasons were for rolling out some of those changes early?
Okay. First of all, it's going to be, as far as today is, the code is going to move forward as soon as we have the availability to get through the rest of the process. My thought to move some of these more substantive changes out, some of these like that I've mentioned today have a positive fiscal impact on the industry, and we've already communicated some of these things to the industry, and I think it would be useful and helpful to the industry to roll some of these bigger substantive changes out in the interim, not to take the place of the full document.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if there's no further questions, I would also like to just kind of communicate that, again, given the times that we're in right now, there's been some challenges out there in the industry on licensing renewals. We just had our April 1st journeyman plumber and solar installer license due date. And so that has been pushed out to give the industry some time to catch up with continuing education and some of the other challenges they have. And so that date has been moved from April 1st currently to July 1st of 2020. Now, in consultation with the board moving forward, if there continues to be challenges, we can come back to the board and maybe talk about an alternate date in the future. Any questions on that?
I have none.
No questions.
Okay. We've also communicated on our website for those that are listening out there or might view the streaming, you can get on the BCD website and it shows the extension till July 1st. So don't be worried that your license shows expired. Through the enforcement section, we've notified all the investigators through CCB and BCD that to call into the division to verify if a license is expired, because in our database it'll show still current up until that July 1st if they were going to have to renew the April 1st. Okay. I think that's about all I have for the program update. Is there any other questions?
No, it'll be a lot easier next time when we all get to see each other.
Absolutely. Again, thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Andy.
You bet.
All right. Next up is Nick Howard.
Good morning, Chair Argy and member of the board. For the record, my name is Nick Howard. I'm a contested case rep at the Building Codes Division. Through the chair, today we have agenda item 3B, which consists of one consent order. It's C-2019-0207. And this case came to us through a citizen complaint, which was turned over to the CCB, and then the CCB referred it to us. Obviously, this was an unlicensed plumbing contractor and performing plumbing without a permit, and also there was an individual who was going to be assessed for performing plumbing without a journeyman plumber's license, but that's a separate notice. All amounts in this case are consistent with past precedent and the penalty matrix. If you're wondering as to why the $8,000 assessment is there, there was also electrical work that was performed, so those amounts are a little bit higher because the assessment takes into account both the electrical and the plumbing program. And so we would ask that the board adopt this consent order and issue a final order.
Okay. So is any of the other members of the board streaming this and can make a recommendation to the motion?
Melissa, get through the chair. Oh, I just found it. Sorry, I didn't see it at first, but I see it here now. Sorry.
Okay. Would you like to make a motion there, Melissa?
Yeah, I can make a motion.
Okay.
See. I make a
See what you
motion.
get for being,
See what I get for asking questions, huh?
no, it's what you get for being technologically advanced.
Hold on just a second. I can get there here.
Yeah.
Oh. I make a motion that we accept the consent order that was described to us from Nick Howard. Does that work?
Does that work, Nick?
Yes, that works. You guys would adopt it and issue a final order. That would be great.
Okay. All right. Motion's been made. Is there any discussion?
Hey,
Nope.
Mr. Chair, I would like to take a roll call vote if there's no discussion.
Okay. Go ahead, Debbie.
Chair Argue. Good vote, please.
I agree.
Vice Chair Matt Rozelle.
Agree.
Craig Anderson.
Agree?
Melissa Gett.
Agree.
Molly Keller.
Agree.
And Joseph LeBeau.
Agree.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right. Thank you. All right. Next, there are no communications. There are no appeals. There are no unfinished business. We will go back to Mr. Andy Skinner.
Thank you, Chair Argue, members of the board. For the record, my name's Andy Skinner. I'll put my other hat on, the interim enforcement manager. Before you today is agenda item 7A. And 7A is for the board to consider delegating authority to the administrator and the deputy administrator of the Building Codes Division to enter a final order in proceedings resulting in an amended order. A little bit of background on this, again, because of the times that we're in. Governor Brown issued an executive order 2012 in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. The impact of the response to the pandemic has created some financial hardships for many Oregonians. The enforcement section, acting on behalf of the board, negotiates consent order agreements with suspended or suspected violators. New consent agreements are reviewed by the board for a final determination. Once the board makes a final determination by approving the consent agreement becomes a final order. The final order sometimes include payment plans which require the respondent to make timely payments, usually postmarked by the 25th. These payment plans cannot be altered without an agreement by the parties and approval of an amended consent order from the board. This proposed temporary delegation of final order authority would only be applicable to requested payment plan adjustments, solely to amend previous board finalized consent orders, and would be in effect until EO 2012 is terminated by the governor or the board decides to terminate it. So, and also the total amount owed by the respondent would not be changed. It's just an adjustment in their payment plan. So currently, when they enter into a payment plan and the board gives an approval on the final order, if they miss a payment, it automatically goes into collections. What this would do would allow the respondent to call the division, ask for an amended payment plan, which would be an amended order, and instead of waiting 2 months to come back to the board for signature, the board is given temporary signature authority to the administrator and the deputy in those cases only. This will take a motion. Any questions?
No questions.
This is Matt Rizzo. I don't have any questions. I'll go ahead and motion to approve the proposed temporary delegation of final order authority to the administrator and deputy administrator as written in the attached letter of authority.
And Mr.
Okay,
Chair,
my motion has been made. Is there any questions?
No.
And Mr. Chair, I would like to take roll call
Yep.
vote.
Yeah,
Chair,
go ahead and do roll call, if you would, Debbie.
Thank you. Chair Argue,
I agree.
Vice Chair Rozelle,
Agreed?
Craig Anderson,
Agreed.
Melissa Gett,
Agree?
Molly Keller,
Agree?
Joseph LeBold.
Agreed.
Motion carried by unanimous vote.
All right, thank you. All right, next we'll move on to Mr. Tyler Glaze.
Good morning, members of the board. Through the chair, for the record, my name is Tyler Glaze, policy analyst for the division. And if you would look to item 7B, we have, for this particular code cycle, we have 29 applications for continuing education from 3 organizations. 1 course was recommended for approval by the committee, 26 instructors were recommended for approval, and 2 instructors were recommended for denial. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask them, and I will hopefully be able to answer those. Otherwise, this requires a motion.
Matt Rizzo, through the chair. I have a question. Shouldn't this be for the 2020 code cycle as opposed to the 2017 code cycle?
Through the chair, Mr. Rozelle, because we actually don't have a new code, the new code has not actually been printed and instituted. It's still for the 2017 cycle until we actually get that physical code document.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
Melissa Gett, through the chair, I have a question for, is it Tyler? right?
Yes.
Thank you. Tyler, I had a question about looking at this matrix. Could you explain to me the approval for the instructors? But now, do they have a program that's already approved and now you're just approving the instructor, or maybe it's a program and then they can, one program and multiple people teach it? Could you explain that to me?
Through the chair, yes. Once that there has been a program approved, any number of instructors can apply to teach that program. I don't have HSI's program in front of me right at the moment, but I can look it up real quickly. But usually you have to have an approved program before an instructor can be approved. That's the way to do things. You can't just apply as an instructor and have no program to teach and then later on apply for an instructor program, if that makes sense. So all of these instructors, for example, from HSI, assuming they provided the correct credentials, are approved because there is already an HSI course in existence. And for example, if you look at the course that was applied for Norris, we're also approving, or the committee recommended for approval, a Norris instructor because there was a course already approved.
Okay, I guess
I hope that answers your question.
Yes, yeah, it definitely does. I'm used to seeing instructor apply for a course. I didn't realize, and I haven't seen this for a while where it shows just the applicant. I've seen like the course with the person's name next to it. But yeah, this makes sense.
Okay. Any other questions for him? Hearing none, I'll go ahead and make a motion. I make a motion to approve the committee's recommendation. Is there any discussion?
No.
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 And I'll take roll call
Yeah.
vote. Chair Argue?
Please do, Debbie.
Thank you.
Agree?
Thank you. Vice Chair Matt Roselle?
Agreed.
Craig Anderson?
Agree.
Melissa Gett?
Agree?
Molly Keller?
Agree?
Joseph LeBold?
Agree.
Mr. Chairman, this is passed by unanimous consent.
Okay, thank you. All right, next up again is Mr. Andy Skinner with a request for education credits.
Thank you, Chair Argue, members of the board. For the record, my name's Andy Skinner, Plumbing Program Chief for the Building Codes Division. Through the chair, the board has in front agenda item 7C. 7C, subject is a continuing education credit for the code committee members. This was submitted by Brad Senecat, the chair. So action requested State Plumbing Board consideration of continuing education credits for licensed members of the 2020 OPS Review Committee. The State Plumbing Board establishes continuing education requirements for all journeyman plumber licenses in order to ensure up-to-date knowledge of the Oregon Plumbing Specialty Code, code-related subject matter, and administrative requirements. The board takes final action on all applications. In previous code cycles, code review committee members were given continuing education credit toward their licensing renewal requirements for volunteering their time. Members of the code review committee possess extensive knowledge of the plumbing code and have years of experience with Oregon regulatory requirements. Additionally, due to the COVID-19 public health crisis, the Building Codes Division has extended the license renewal deadline for the journeyman plumber and solar heating and cooling system plumbing installer's license from April to July. So the 2020 OPSC Code Committee met 3 times, and each meeting lasted approximately 6 hours, which equals approximately about 18 hours of reviewing the model code, which was the 2021 for the 2020 OPSC. And those public proposals, statewide alternate methods, statewide interpretations, and Oregon amendments. So for discussion today for the board, the chair of the code committee Review Committee is requesting the board approve the following continuing education credit hours for the licensed members of the 2020 Oregon Plumbing Specialty Code for 4 hours of code change and 4 hours of rule and law and 4 hours of code related. So there's a total of 12 hours. What's unique about this request, because of the COVID-19 issues that we're having and because of the extension of the licensing till July 1st, the committee was asking that this approval go for the 2020 cycle, which now does not expire till July 1st, and the 2023 cycle. But each member of the committee can only use it for one cycle or the other. And if there's no questions, this will take a motion.
Mr. Chair, argue. I agree with this. We've done this in the past, and I agree that if you want to use it in the next cycle or the current cycle, so I have no issue with this at all. Would anybody like to make a motion?
Yeah, I can. I motion to approve the review committee's request for continuing education credit, granting 4 hours of code-related credit and 4 hours of code change, Oregon rule and law credit, to be applied to either the 2020 or 2023 code cycle.
Okay, a motion has been made. Is there any discussion?
Nope.
No.
Nope.
Okay. So Debbie, would you like to do a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Chair Argue,
I agree.
Vice Chair Rozelle,
Agree?
Craig Anderson,
Agree?
Melissa Gatt,
Agree?
Molly Keller,
Agree?
Joseph LaValle.
Agree.
Mr. Chairman, motion is passed by unanimous consent.
Okay. So, since there is no further business or anything to do, I guess we're going to call for adjournment. The time is 9:59.